We are busting indie myths on the daily, weekly, monthly and yearly until the Scot Nats see clearly. That's what we do here. That's what we do. We bust the indie myths. And in Busting Indy Myths Part 13, we're going to look at the oft-heard myth that Scotland has different values from England. So different that separation is the only way to protect those values. Sometimes it's framed as Scotland is more progressive than England. However, the fact is, Scotland and England have the same values. Now, why do the Scot Nats say this? Why do they say that Scotland and England have different values? Because culturally, the distinct elements of Scotland have always been protected. The cultural elements, they've always been protected within the United Kingdom. And as far as our identity goes, there's nobody stopping you being as Scottish as you want. So your Scottish identity is perfectly protected within the Union. So they can't claim that there's a cultural threat, and they can't claim that there's a threat to our identity. So what they have to do is they have to pretend that there's a threat somehow to a set of values that can only be protected with separation. However, this is a stretch and a half, it has to be said. Claiming that Scotland is more progressive than England simply cannot stand up to any reasonable analysis. For example, historically, you only have to look at England's long history of social reform movements to see that England has a huge history of such events, from the Magna Carta to the Lollards, to the Levellers, to the Diggers, to the Chartists, to the Tolpuddle Martyrs, to the Jarrow Marchers. The list is endless, and in fact it would make a very good article, which no doubt we'll get round to penning one of these days. And at the present time, studies suggest that there's very little social difference between the Scots and the English as far as their values on political matters are concerned. The future of the Union, of course, apart. In our wee book for the Union, we made this point, and we quoted here a December 2018 report by the National Centre for Social Research, which found that the percentage of people in Scotland or England who think immigration is good or bad is approximately the same. Okay, same number of people who support it, same number of people who are against it, proportionally speaking. It found that public opinion in Scotland is divided in similar ways to England, and that the evidence shows there's no appetite. As far as we're concerned, the evidence shows that there's no appetite for the SNP's plans for more immigration. And in fact, some people will vote for the SNP because they think wrongly that the SNP wants to control immigration. So, modern social research suggests that there's very little difference to our quote-unquote values. So, at the end of the day, the idea that Scotland has different values from England is really just a convenient political complaint to make about the current government in Westminster, imagining that it's got different values from the great mass of the Scottish people, which is a completely different argument, of course, from arguing that the Scots and the English themselves intrinsically have different values. Across the board, we've got the same sorts of values. And here's the thing as well, if these people got their way, then they would not be progressive, they would not be inclusive towards people like ourselves Okay, they would not be progressive towards the British identity if they ever got their way. It's us unionists who are open-minded on these sorts of social matters, especially matters related around identity. For example, we don't mind people saying that they're Scottish, not British. If that's their bag, that's their bag. But oh, they really hate it when we say we're Scottish and British. So when it comes to these matters of identity, we are the ones who are much more inclusive. We are the ones who are much more progressive on those sorts of things. And if they ever got their way, they would not give us the time of day on those sorts of things. Indeed, they would continue to see our political identity as a threat that had to be silenced. If they got their way, they would not make any room for the British identity in Scotland. They would try to purge it. As we regularly point out, the SNP is trying to purge it right now while we are still in the Union. They want to take down flags, and they've taken down the Union Jack from all their so-called government buildings. They want to revise Scottish history to get rid of all the pro-UK people from the age of achievement, which they don't like hearing about. And that's an ongoing matter, by the way, of course. So right now, it's us unionists who are on the progressive side. We're the ones who are trying to keep it together. We're the ones who are trying to hold what we have. They are the ones who are trying to break up things. They are the ones who are trying to destroy the work of centuries for no gain, for no perceivable benefit. So, as we always say, it is the Union which is the true progressive alliance. Historically, we know that it's been coming together since the dawn of time, since Britain first arose from out the azure main, as the song by the Scotsman William Thomson called Rule Britannia states. And Scotland and England are no longer warring with each other as we did during the 12th and 13th and 14th centuries, because we've developed the political institutions of union. And politically today, it's progressive policies such as the NHS and the welfare state, which were created by the post-war British political consensus, which Scotland continues to benefit from today because of the Union. And as somebody mentioned in the comments, look at all the millions, indeed billions, that have come to Scotland in the last couple of years. And going forward, we know that the challenges which confront us must be resolved by working together. We know that a problem in Aberdeen concerns us if we live in Aberystwyth. A problem in Donegal concerns us if we live in Dundee. A problem in Glasgow concerns us if we live in Glastonbury. As British Unionists, we emphasise the values of solidarity, not separation. We emphasise the values of unity, not division. We emphasise the values of giving, not getting, the values of one for all and all for one. And as we always say, we know that Scotland is big enough and rich enough and clever enough to share its resources and to share its wealth with all its family throughout these islands. Attempting to destroy the United Kingdom is regressive. Keeping the United Kingdom together is progressive. The United Kingdom is the progressive alliance. And folks, we talk about this in our wee book for the Union, where we say the United Kingdom is the true progressive alliance. So please do consider buying that from our shop.